Hey, and welcome to your version U.2 summit. And my name is Sabrina. I'm super excited to actually be able to introduce you, Peter, today and to put you in a position to share your message with us. I'm very honored to be on the other end and welcome you as we dive in you and your message. So let's get straight into it. So what do we know about you, Peter? Peter, she's a love coach, a heartbreak healer, and specializes in helping women through relationship challenges, manage emotions, and overcome painful breakups in record time. So Peter, welcome to your interview.
Hi, Sabrina. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it is really exciting to be on the other side of it after, now 21 days of speaking to amazing, beautiful women and all of the gorgeous women that have joined us on this summit and have given such beautiful feedback and are really experiencing some great transformation. So today, what I'm going to be talking about is for anyone who's in a relationship and they're not really happy in that relationship or single and struggling a little bit to navigate that dating process. If you've just gone through a breakup and you're, sort of overwhelmed with all of those negative emotions, I'm going to be talking about what I call relationship and dating anxiety and how our emotions and our insecurities play out in relationships. And I'm going to be sharing some insights about breakups, including the top reasons why I see men leave relationships that are probably unnecessary, and a couple of tips about just how to fast track the recovery process if you've gone through a breakup recently that may be able to help as well.
That sounds really cool. I'm super excited to hear all about that, and I'm sure that I can even learn a couple of tips and tricks about breakup and maybe moving forward into that next relationship. But before we get into that, Peter, I would love to know, and I'm sure all the other viewers would love to know, how you actually came to specialize in the area of relationships and breakups.
It actually started out fairly organically. I just found over the years that when any of my friends or extended family were going through some relationship challenges, I would usually be the one that they would sort of reach out to. And I had a really strong empathy for people that, that are going through relationship and dating problems. And so I just sort of found, and as we all know, like when you're having problems yourself or when you're having a breakup and you've got all of those overwhelming emotions going on, it's so hard to get clarity and to get perspective about what is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. So having that outside opinion and outside support always helps, but sometimes our friends and family don't really always offer us the most useful advice. I mean, with all the best intentions, they say what they think is going to help, but that's not always the right thing. So that's where I felt really passionate about being able to provide support for people like that and actually make a career out of it, because I do feel like that's my calling. And Sabrina, I have to be honest and share a little bit about my story as well, because when people say breakups, what about breakups? And I'm like, I think honestly, I've probably had more breakups than anyone I know. So if there's anyone that's experienced it going through breakups, it's probably me. I had 20 years of a relationship history that was just all over the place. My first boyfriend, when I was a young adult, just cheated persistently, and I was so naive I didn't even realise at the time until the relationship came to a head. And then I had all of this shame of not actually knowing and being so naive and just wondering how could someone that you believed really loved you just blatantly lie to you constantly. And so that left me with some insecurities. And then moving on to my next relationships through my 20s, I had some beautiful relationships, but they ended through reasons that sort of weren't really any fault of my own in a sense. The next boyfriend was a soccer player and he moved to England to play for the Premier League, which was amazing, but I was at uni at the time. My next boyfriend was a football player and he had to move interstate. My next boyfriend had an amazing business that took off and he had to move to Hong Kong. And so by the time I hit my 30s, I was like, I just felt like, is there anything that I can do to be good enough to keep a relationship? And I developed a bit of a victim mindset. People felt sorry for me because all of my relationships ended, you know, somewhat unfortunately. And, you know, and I played that victim mindset. It's not my fault. It was never my fault. But it just left me feeling like, you know, I'm never going to be good enough. Am I ever going to be good enough? So, you know, fast forward to my 30s, and I had so many insecurities and so many, just emotional relationships that were, you know, lots of fighting and lots of mistrust, and really struggled through my 30s until one day, you know, I found, this is about 5 years ago, found another boyfriend, you know, had been unfaithful. There was tears and nights of, you know, calling and, you know, confronting them. And I just realized enough is enough. Like, I have to stop this awful pattern of being overly emotional. And I used to just say, oh, it's just because I'm an emotional person. But I really had no handle on those emotions, and they were just so destructive in my relationships and work and family. And so I said, enough's enough. And I set about on a journey to actually find out how to manage my emotions and live more effectively and have more effective relationships. And I studied coaching and NLP and read hundreds of books and understood, you know, human behavior. And now I'm really passionate about teaching other women that. And obviously through that time too, I've learned how to get over a relationship really quickly and what some of the keys are to doing that. And that's where, you know, my coaching programs, which are really successful. So I have Breakup to Breakthrough, which is getting over a relationship fast and being able to leverage the pain of a relationship to create a wonderful new life. And also programs that help people to get back with an ex if they know and understand that they've co-created some of those problems in the relationship that are fixable. And also an Enlightened Relationships program, which is for women who are in a relationship and they haven't broken up, but it's not quite at the level that they'd like, and they understand that, you know, managing their emotions and changing some things within that relationship can help it to become, you know, much more supportive and much more functional. So that's sort of my story. But yeah, I love what I do. I have a practice here in Armidale in Melbourne, and also do lots of Skype coaching as well. And yeah, just totally passionate about helping young women through some of these challenges.
That sounds amazing, Peta. And you know what? I love the fact that actually you picked up and you shared that, you know, you haven't even attracted like a typical loser, but yet your relationships didn't work out. So you've actually attracted really successful men into your life, and still the relationship hasn't worked. And I love the fact that you now come out of it and you say, well, actually, it's just that journey that you have to go on, and it's actually not such a bad thing. And I think that just brings up the fact that if you look around society, you probably notice, and you would know this from your clients, that breakups happen everywhere. You know, marriages break down a lot more than they used to. Like, the divorce rate is so high. And I just, you know, that the whole, I guess, the perception of, you know, be with the man, one man only for the rest of your life, that happy ever after, that just doesn't exist anymore. So I want to know, can you shed a little bit of light on, you know, why do you think that breakups are so common these days, and why the divorce rates are so high?
Yeah, actually, Sabrina, it's interesting because the divorce rate has been declining since 1976. And now in Australia, you'll hear stats from the States that it's like 50%. But in Australia, it's really only about 1 in 3. And I think what that's related to is the fact that we are marrying a lot later now, later in life. So often people aren't marrying even well into their, you know, late 20s and 30s. And so what that means is that we are having a number of significant, what I'd call, you know, multiple years, significant and potentially living relationships before that lifetime partnership. But what's really important to understand is that, you know, just because those relationships don't work doesn't mean that we've failed. We haven't failed. And even if our marriage doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're a failure, because, you know, we grow and we evolve throughout our lifespan. And now, because we are looking for more out of a relationship, it can sometimes be unrealistic to expect one relationship to be the most satisfying and relationship to last a lifetime. And again, that's why I'm so passionate about helping navigate through those breakups, because it's the learnings that we take from those and what we make those experiences mean that are really critical to the success of our future relationships. If we don't resolve them, if we don't understand what the purpose of the relationship is, if we hold on to negative emotions and negative associations from those relationships, it does really make it hard to form healthy relationships. And I just wanted to mention for all the ladies out there that, you know, for most people, they don't actually, there's not usually just a moment when they go, that's it, I'm leaving the relationship, I've had enough, or there's not just usually one catalyst for a breakup. People, you know, and research has been done on this, and it actually shows that people have usually thought about breaking up for several months before it actually happens. And so it is important to understand that, you know, that a man won't just walk away from the relationship. It really is inherent in their nature that they want to fix it. They do want to fix the relationship. They will usually leave a relationship when they feel that they just can't make you happy anymore. You know, in a sense, they sort of feel pushed to leave the relationship. And I guess the critical decider really is when someone feels like the pain of being in that relationship is greater than the pain of losing you. That's just a really critical time. So, you know, I'll say that again. When the pain of being in the relationship becomes greater than the pain of losing you, that's really when someone will choose to leave the relationship.
You know, Peta, I totally hear, and I can totally relate, you know, to share. I guess my last relationship was exactly that. Like, it took me 6 months, probably 6 months to, you know, to figure out, did I want to still be with the person or not? You know, I loved him dearly, but I realized that we had some issues, and it was a constant up and down, up and down. And honestly, like, it was probably the only time in my life where I was pretty close to getting or being depressed. Like, I really just wasn't myself. And, you know, and you're absolutely right. It came to the point where I just knew that the way where I was, that just wasn't going to be enough. And I didn't know what was going to be on the other end, but I just knew that that pain, exactly that pain of being in that particular moment in that relationship was bigger than the fear of the unknown. So yeah, but it's so true. I think, yeah, totally resonates with me.
Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about was some of the main reasons why relationships break down, and I've sort of popped 5 in, given the time that we have in our session, in our interview today. Now, this is really, I guess, for younger relationships of months and years, and probably doesn't really apply to a very long-standing marriage that has other complications like children and financial challenges, and, you know, and certainly doesn't apply in situations where there's addictions and mental illness. But for relationships that fail, that probably didn't have to fail, the 5 main reasons that I see in my practice is what I'd really like to share today. The first reason is when a man feels a little bit trapped in the relationship. And it's so important, like, men, you know, we don't actually realize just how much men value their freedom, or at least the illusion of freedom. So, you know, when we put restrictions on our partner, or, you know, a lot of women are guilty of making their partner feel guilty for going out and playing golf or doing something that they enjoy when they should really be home supporting family or looking after, you know, taking care of things around the house. And so putting that guilt on your partner and not allowing him to experience that feeling of freedom within the relationship makes the guy feel trapped, and it makes him feel like, you know, he has no room to grow. It makes him feel like, look, this is not going to get any better. It's probably going to get worse. It also has to do with trust. You know, that also makes him question, is it because she doesn't trust me? I haven't done anything wrong. Like, what's going on here? And I guess your partner really doesn't feel like he has your full support. So it's really important to be able to, you know, to enjoy spending time apart and to have separate interests, and, you know, and to allow your partner freedom within the relationship, because eventually, if he feels really trapped, like he's, you know, and it's not going to get any better, no matter how much he loves you, he will muster up the courage to leave eventually.
Yeah, that's interesting. I totally hear you, and I wonder that's probably maybe even also true for the other side. Like women probably appreciate their freedom just as much, right? So I guess vice versa. Like if a person feels trapped, if there's too many boundaries, too many conditions, too much control, then you don't feel, you know, like you really want to be in that relationship. So that's really interesting. What else? Like, tell me more. What else? What's number two in your
Yeah, so and you're right, this all does work the other way as well. I guess because we are speaking to all the beautiful women out there, that I am putting in the perspective of why men leave relationships. But it, you know, it does work the other way, and that doesn't mean to say that, you know, that relationships always break down because of, you know, because it's our fault and we push them away. But this is just some advice that I think can help in situations when relationships are falling apart and not working for reasons that we can fix and we can be empowered to help. So number two is when we actually make a man feel like less than a man, and these are sort of like emasculating behaviors. And I think, you know, we've spoken a lot about the masculine and feminine energies with many of the beautiful coaches throughout this summit, and how, you know, modern women are very much in their masculine, and we, you know, with our careers and our businesses and all of the responsibilities that we have in our daily lives, you know, we are a lot more channeled into our masculine. But sometimes bringing those behaviors home, or in, you know, bringing those into your relationship, can make him feel quite emasculated, and can kill his confidence and make him feel like, you know, he's always falling short of our expectations. And we know obviously that with men, they love to feel appreciated, and, you know, and they feel most happy when they can make us happy. So it's just really important to be able to find a way to really regularly show your appreciation, even just for the small things. And I know that I've certainly made a practice of actually going, you know, I feel a little bit annoyed at the moment, or, you know, you've let me down, or I really expected that you'd do that, and to actually flip it. And when I'm in that sort of feeling that way about my partner, I actually just step out and show appreciation for something that he's done when I least feel like it. And it's amazing how everything can shift when you do that, when you least feel like it, in fact. So yeah, it's just really important to try and make your partner feel like he's winning at making you happy. And that can be done through obviously expressing your appreciation as much as possible.
Oh, I love that. I'll definitely make a note of that to remind myself to always come from a place of gratitude. Let the man be the man and make him feel like he's winning. I love that. That's really cool. That's awesome. So what do you think is number three? Oh, not what do you think, but what do you know is number three?
Yeah, so the third one, I think, and this is a really interesting one, and that's when we pressure a man into commitment. So we've all had an experience probably of dating a commitment phobic man, and yes, they do exist. And, you know, that's the guy that, you know, you think, oh wow, we've got this great connection, and, you know, and everything's great, this is going to go somewhere, and it just doesn't. And, you know, it's through no fault of our own, he just is not. And you usually find out that he has a pattern of that in the past as well. But apart from, you know, that small percentage of men, most men really do want to settle down and build a life and be committed to just one person. And that's a genuine reality. So, you know, we tend to think these commitment phobic men are really more than, you know, than the amount that they are. So, but the problem is, even your regular guy who does want to settle down and is prepared to commit to one woman, he still has a fear about that. There's still very, very real fears, and it's natural for him to be quite fearful and nervous about the perceived responsibilities that come with that. And so, you know, as we spoke about before, there's obviously this fear of, you know, losing his sense of freedom. What will happen, you know, if I have all these financial commitments, and if I have family responsibilities, and, you know, the responsibilities of being a provider, and that then being a lifetime responsibility. So, you know, there can be a little bit of resistance to that. And often what women think is, oh, it's because he doesn't love me that he's not committing. And it's actually not the case. It's just a natural fear. So what often tends to happen is then, you know, women start to pressure and pressure the man into commitment. And you can probably think of examples yourself, Sabrina, like, you know, when someone actually tells you to do something, that you have to do something, that's exactly when you stop wanting to do it. So it's important not to pressure your partner into a commitment, and actually just focusing on creating the best relationship that you have today and the best relationship now, and all the day-to-day actions that you can show them that you love them, and then they're not going to want to, you know, imagine a life without you. And that's what's really the most important thing. And I guess I feel really strongly about young women also considering, you know, what is commitment? Like, what are you hoping to get out of that? How, you know, and considering what is an ideal relationship for you, because I think, you know, we sort of undergo a bit of societal pressure or expectation that, you know, by a certain age we'll be married, and by a certain age we'll have children, and by a certain age, and, you know, and that this is all sort of mapped out for us. And, you know, people will say, oh, you know, so when are you guys going to be tying the knot? Or, you know, so when are the grandchildren going to be, you know, coming along? And, you know, I think there's this sense of we have to follow that sort of traditional path. And, you know, I guess what I've come to understand is that it's not working for everyone. It doesn't suit everyone. But we aren't stopping and considering what would be a life, what would be a relationship, what type of relationship do I want? How do I want to live my life? You know, I'm sure that, you know, do you have many examples of great traditional relationships that you would like to model, Sabrina?
Do you know what? Probably not as much. It's really hard to find. I mean, there's probably, you know, one couple that I look up to, and I feel like they've really, really nailed it. But even they are not in their first marriage anymore, neither. Like, they had to learn. But anywhere else I look, I see so many, yeah, like you said, so many not super great models, because I can see, oh, okay, maybe one person's compromising for the other, or maybe people falling into traps, like you said, where the pressure is on, that maybe they got married because they had to, and that's what, you know, was expected of them. And yeah, so it's really hard actually to find really great relationship models. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so we tend to just default back onto what we think is the right one. And I sort of went through, you know, I sort of got to late 30s, and, you know, and then people start to ask you, you know, are you or aren't you going to have children, because, you know, biological clock and all of that. And, you know, so I got into a relationship with someone that was, you know, financially secure and probably would have made a good father, but it just didn't feel right. And I had to go through, you know, there was a defining moment in my late 30s where I had to actually decide, do I really want children? Do I actually, you know, now I'm sort of following this path and creating this life now that's going to lead to that. But I realized that I didn't want it. I never had. I just sort of thought that you know, those maternal instincts would eventually kick in, and I was almost doing it because I thought, oh, maybe I'll hit like 50 and I'll regret that I didn't, so I better just do it anyway. And so I really stopped and stripped everything away and thought about what sort of life and what sort of relationship I wanted. And I think, you know, it's like a blank canvas then. We sort of think, what do I want out of a relationship? And I feel like we're really sort of moving into a time now when many people are sort of saying, okay, this traditional model of relationship, yeah, it clearly isn't working for everyone, but what is the new paradigm for a relationship? You know, what does that look like? And if, you know, I'm going to have something that's more evolved and different than what my parents or, you know, other family members past had, what criteria am I looking to evaluate this person on? How is that new relationship going to look? Who's going to be a suitable partner for me if I don't have to tick off the tick boxes about, you know, financial security and, you know, loving father, and, you know, I've got that sorted. I don't, you know, need to tick those tick boxes. So yeah, so it sort of leaves us all open to, you know, to creating a new relationship that really works for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You're right. I think we live in in an era where, as a woman, like you said, we probably don't actually need a man for anything anymore. Like, we don't even need a man to have babies, right? Like, if we wanted to, we could completely just go and have our own child, and we're so successful and so independent. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I believe that there is this new paradigm, like a new paradigm for relationships, right? What are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on, you know, what that new paradigm of relationships looks like?
Yeah, I think it's just, and I really, really challenge everyone to have a think about, there is no new model. It's really about what, you know, we can create whatever we like. But I've got a little bit of a diagram here that I wanted to show you, because people will have been familiar with this. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's the pyramid of which human motivation moves through. And so you'll see down the bottom, there's safety and physiological needs. And so, you know, for I guess, you know, for centuries past, you know, often we married for needs of being able to have, you know, shelter and water and security and, you know, family and social support. And, you know, that's what a marriage provided for us. But now we've sort of evolved that, like we said, we don't need those things from a partnership, that we actually, you know, we do look to these middle ones here, which are, you know, love, belonging and esteem. So that's, you know, now we expect our partner to be, you know, our intimate lover. We expect to have those beautiful connections. We expect to have beautiful family and extended families. The esteem needs as well. We expect our partner to support us in our dreams and to be successful, and to have, I guess, have recognition for that. And, you know, and that's sort of where we're at now. But I think this new paradigm of a relationship is actually evolving even further, because we can still provide those things for ourselves. We've talked a lot about self-love as well. We don't need a partner to validate that we're loved. And so the very top of the pyramid here is moving into self-actualization. And then I think even moving beyond that into more of a spiritual realm. So, you know, a partnership that actually helps us to grow and become a better, more evolved person, a partner that helps us to, you know, connect into our creativity and have amazing shared experiences, and you know, even from the spiritual realm, you know, going beyond that, we understand that we are a soul within, you know, within this body on this earth. And, you know, how potentially can we spiritually enhance each other's experience while we're both here on this earth and beyond, so more people, you know, are getting more in touch with that, and how does our own spirituality play into and connect with, you know, the importance of having that, you know, that sacred relationship in our life, which, you know, people sometimes call twin flames, or, you know, soul connections and things like that. So, what that means, though, is that, you know, with these expectations that our partner, that our relationship is going to become more evolved, it also means that we need to have new ways of resolving these relationships if we are, you know, we are in a place where we're going to be more expansive and more vulnerable. And so navigating, again, those relationships is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head with that. So yeah, thank you. It definitely gets me thinking already. So tell me then, what else is there? So what else are the other reasons? Like, what's number 4 of the main 5 reasons why relationships break down?
Oh, look, this is just one that I call the mother syndrome. And if you've ever noticed yourself, you know, displaying sort of motherly behaviours, and this is a little bit like emasculating. And again, it sort of comes down to, you know, bring that masculine energy in, but then it can also go the other way as well, and if we're overly nurturing too. So it's just important to be mindful about how you speak and act, and just to really practice being a lover, not a friend, because men are not attracted to their mother. So a lover and a friend, I should say. So yeah, so just lighten up and make sure that you're injecting heaps of fun into the relationship. Keep it humorous. Research that's been done on obviously the traits that men find most attractive in women, and you know, good humor and fun is always really high up on the list. So that's a really important thing to make sure with all the stresses in life, and sometimes we can feel really burdened, and life can get really serious, but where possible, remember to inject fun into it so it doesn't feel like you know, you're falling victim to this mother syndrome scenario in a relationship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, no one wants to have sex with their own mother, right? That's like, but I totally hear you too. Like, you know what? I think even fun for me, I always say like fun and humor is so much more, almost so much more attractive in a relationship, because at the end of the day, you know, good looks fade, and you know, if you're thinking long term with a partner, like, I think that essence of being able to connect and communicate and have fun and laugh about things is so much more sexier to me than just like a hot body. So yeah, you absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one.
But the biggest, and I want to spend a little bit of time on the fifth one, because I think it's actually the biggest and I guess most relevant one, and the most important message that I wanted to get across in this interview. And in my practice, 9 out of 10 of the relationships that I see and the breakups that occur have happened as a result of insecurity. And women are insecurities, and women that are insecure tend to go into relationships thinking that they're going to get something out of it. So if you're a little bit unhappy, thinking that the relationship is going to make you whole and complete, you know, that you are 2 halves of a whole and suddenly life is wonderful. But it doesn't happen that way. And when you are insecure in a relationship, and you're finding, okay, the relationship's not making me fully happy because I wasn't fully happy within myself, it puts a lot of pressure on your partner to constantly reassure you that you're loved, constantly reassure you that they're not going to leave you, constantly reassure you that they're thinking about you, constantly trying to make you feel safe. And that comes about, yeah, when we're not happy with ourselves. And I say this sometimes to clients, like, being insecure, an insecure woman is like a slow poison to a man in a relationship, that constant need to be validated, to be reassured. And it's interesting, once a man has been involved with an insecure woman, he actually feels really wary of going back there again. So some of you would have experienced, you know, going through the dating process and meeting a guy, and it goes really great until one of your insecurities comes up, or he sees you being a little bit emotional, and he does a runner. And you're like, whoa, you know, hang on. And it only just plays more into your insecurities of like, I'm not good enough and he didn't like me and what did I do? But often it can be because he's been involved with someone who is really insecure. It was such a burden for a long period of time. And of course, when you're with someone and you know that they're not happy and everything that you're trying to do to make them happy is still not working, it's quite hard to extract yourself from that relationship. And eventually men will say, you know, there's nothing I can do to make her happy, and I'm definitely not happy. But it's still very hard to break up with someone who you know is going to be devastated, and who you know is not happy and is really struggling with insecurities, and you can't make happy. So so that's why it's really mindful of us to be it's important for us to be mindful of our insecurities. And I guess there are, for people who haven't heard of the 3 universal fears, which we all have to varying degrees, and over certain periods in our lives they play out worse than other times. But we all have a fear of being not worthy and not being enough. We all have an innate fear of not being loved, and we all have a fear of not belonging. And so, you know, when we allow these fears to come up and we bring them up in relationships, it really results in, you know, very low self-esteem and lack of self-love, and, and makes us feel, you know, we lack courage in the relationship, and ultimately we give our power away to someone else, hoping that they'll make us happy. And, you know, lots of trust issues come up from that. And, you know, particularly like has been my experience, if you've had a partner that's been unfaithful, quite often you can bring that baggage into the relationship as well. Physical insecurities, other sorts of baggage from the past. It just constantly makes you feel like, you're not good enough, and that, you know, sooner or later your partner's going to leave you, and those worries, you know, they actually end up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you fear being abandoned or being alone, and you bring all of that up into the relationship, it actually inevitably will play out that way. So it's just really important to notice when you're bringing your insecurities into the relationship and how they might be impacting it, because it's our responsibility to deal with them. It's not our partner's.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, you're so right. I think those insecurities lead women often to give that power away and bring up, you know, and repeat the same patterns over and over and over again, and bring all these insecurities into the next relationship, hoping that that man is going to give them everything that they need, and they're going to love them, and they're going to, you know, but it's not actually like that. You can't go into a relationship looking to be fulfilled by that other person. Is that whole concept of where you have to fulfill yourself. You have to be happy in yourself in order to actually attract like for like, so that you together can grow continuously and nurture each other. So I totally hear you. I wonder, could you shed a little bit more light, I guess, on those insecurities? Like, if women are out there and that might resonate with someone today, how as women can we recognize that our insecurities are playing out, so, you know, that potentially women can nip them in the butt a lot quicker?
Good question, Sabrina. Look, there's a few that come to mind, and one of them is, I guess, insecurities about our physical appearance, about our weight, and a lot of women, because after all, we all have a few little hang-ups about things, and, you know, none of us are perfect, but bringing those into the relationship. So, you know, if you know, sort of complaining about your weight all the time, or about how you don't look great, and it's just, I mean, this is the body that he loves. He loves you. And so when he hears you criticizing this body, it hurts him in a way. And, you know, and when you're in that place, you're not gracious with compliments. If he says, oh, you look great, babe, you sort of think, oh yeah, you're just saying that. So not having that, not being able to be gracious with compliments, and not believing that he actually loves the body that you're in because you feel really insecure. And I know this is totally your thing, this, you know, the importance of body love, and how important it is for our own happiness. But yeah, you totally get how that can really affect relationships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you're absolutely right. How often do women constantly need validation from that other man, when really you got to realize, like, the man's already with you. He actually loves you for who you are, and more often, you know, it's they're in love with you as all of that you are, like the person, the soul, the spirit, the friend, the lover, and not just what you look like. Of course, the appearance is a major factor, but it's not everything that you are. And it's so sad to see women to bring it back to that appearance, to thinking that they have to look a certain way in order to be lovable, or, you know, to be attractive to the other sex, to get attention, and at worst, you know, leaving women to not even feeling confident to have sex with their partner because of their appearance. So your message of, you know, going back and realizing that, you know, that man loves you for who you are and how you make him feel, and that it's not necessarily all about what you look like, because there's so much more that's more important about relationship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, an extension of that lack of self-love and lack of confidence, you know, that can also play out in sex life as well. So if you're noticing, you know, that you're feeling like, oh, like, you know, I'm just worried that he's going to feel my love handles, or I don't want him to see my cellulite, you know, that lack of body confidence is actually a real turn-off for a guy. So it's just like, own it, love it, be confident. You know, what other advice do you have for girls about that, Sabrina? This is also your thing.
Yeah, like, listen, at the end of the day, it's about, you know, feeling good nude. Like, what woman doesn't want to feel good nude? You know, I think it's not just chasing an appearance, because we can all lose weight or we can all tone up and buff up and get muscle tone, but then if you still don't feel good nude and feel, you know, at home in your own body, that experience got, you know, that exterior doesn't matter. So it's really coming back to a place of accepting yourself for who you are today and loving yourself for who you are and embracing yourself for who you are today. And if you can get to that self-acceptance and self-actualization, well, then the appearance usually is actually a follow-on byproduct of that. So it comes back to loving yourself for who you are today, finding the good bits about you.
And the benefit of that is that you just become so much more of an attractive person, not just to the opposite sex, but an attractive person when you can radiate that beautiful self-love and that confidence as well.
Absolutely.
The one that I actually just thought of that I forgot to mention, which is the big one, which is the main one, which is a really huge sign that insecurities are playing out in your relationship, is when there's issues with trust. And so signs of this would be, you know, questioning your partner about, you know, where he's been and what he's been doing. If you have issues with him having relationships with other females, you know, relationships with females at work, or if he adds a new female on Facebook, you know, grilling about, well, who is she and how, you know, how do you know her, and, you know, grilling him about that. And then all of those other signs of things that, you know, that you can do when you get quite insecure and there's trust issues in the relationship, like checking his phone and going through his wallet and, you know, checking his social media accounts. And, you know, I'm sure many people will go, yeah, okay, I was guilty of that. But, you know, they are trust issues. And if, and a lot of the time we do that only after we get that, you know, that intuition, that gut feeling that something is wrong, but it shouldn't actually have to get to that point, because, you know, many women bring their trust issues into the relationship. The guy has done nothing wrong. And when he feels as though you aren't trusting him, he's like, well, how on earth are we ever going to build trust? If I haven't done anything wrong in the relationship from here, how are we going to create trust if this is an issue that, you know, that I can't help her overcome?
Oh, I totally hear you. I know so many women who do that. I know I've been guilty in past in one of my relationships. So you're totally right. You only get to that point where you feel that something isn't quite right. So I wonder, like, what advice would you have for someone that, you know, who's experienced these issues, who are having that gut feeling of, oh my God, maybe I'm actually lacking trust in the other person? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so just recapping some of the things that we've actually said. Obviously, that to start, don't go into a relationship unless you're feeling whole and complete within yourself. Like you are whole and complete. We don't need a partner to fill us up and make us feel whole, because inevitably, if we do, like, you know, that person is, regardless of how amazing they are and how much they love us, they're always gonna let us down, and that can create huge issues in a relationship. Excuse me. Huge issues in a relationship if we expect a partner to never let us down, and the meaning that we place on that. The other thing is, and you just mentioned it there as well, a guy who falls in love with the way that we make him feel, not, you know, the body that we have, or the amazing outfit that we have, or the career that we've achieved, or the great car that we drive, or the fancy things that we have, or the, you know, he falls in love with how he feels when he's around us. So it's our responsibility to make, you know, if we want to have a healthy, functioning, beautiful relationship, to make sure that he feels great. And, you know, and it also works back both ways. But, you know, in terms of what we can do, understanding that the behaviours, these insecure behaviours and trust issues, they're really coming from a place of fear, the fear that we're not good enough, and the fear that we're not lovable. And when we bring all of those fears into the relationship, it's our thoughts that are actually going to create our reality. It's our thoughts that are attracting either a positive experience or a negative experience. I actually want to give you an example, and this was a girl who'd started dating a guy, and they had been seeing each other for a couple of months, and they usually used to text a few times throughout the day, you know, just to see how they're going, and catch up a few nights a week and go out on beautiful dates on the weekend. And it was sort of evolving into something really beautiful, and she was really hopeful. And then one day she messaged him in the morning and thought, oh, that's a bit strange, because he hadn't messaged her later on in the day. And as the day wore on, she started to let these fears come into play, and started to think, oh, what if he's met someone else? What if he's not interested anymore? What if he didn't like such and such and such and such, and replaying conversations and things that happened, and, and sending another text saying, is everything okay? I haven't heard from you. And then a couple of hours later, okay, if you don't want to speak to me anymore, at least you can have the courtesy to let me know what I've done wrong. And those texts just escalated and escalated to the point where, all of the insecurities, started to show in the messages. And she was quite distraught that night, was really upset. What have I done? This person doesn't want to speak to me anymore. He's not responding to any of my text messages. And, and the next day she gets the message from him explaining that he'd been out for lunch on a business meeting and left his phone at the restaurant. The restaurant had closed after the lunchtime period, and he hadn't been able to get his phone back until the following morning. And his message also indicated that he was very glad that they met, but doesn't think that he's really ready for a relationship right now. And thank you so much, and wishing you all the best.
Yeah, because he probably would have better come back to his phone and realized that there were like 35, 40 messages from, hey, how you doing? To, oh, haven't heard from you. To, oh, you could have let me know that you're not interested. To, well, and I can already see that play out. And I wonder how many girls have been in that situation. So it's a little bit funny, but it's not funny, but it is funny. Yeah.
So that really, unfortunately, spelt the end of what could have potentially been a good relationship. And it's just one example, and you're right. I think a lot of young women can actually think of examples where maybe, they've sort of let their mind and their fears come into play, and created a situation that wasn't even real. So our thoughts create our reality, and we can, she could have chosen to think, oh, that's strange that he hasn't called me, but we have a really good thing going on. So, I'm sure that there's a reason, and I'll just wait until I hear from him.
Yeah, totally. And I think, how often, I wonder, like, even in other relationships, does it come up, come up in terms of how often do women, react rather than respond, because their own insecurities come to play? And straight away they react at someone. And so most often it's actually it's not the guy's fault. Like, maybe he's been caught up in a meeting, maybe he's been caught up in traffic, maybe there's things that have been out of control, but yet as soon as something doesn't go the way we feel we want it to go or we expect, then our insecurities come up and we're like, oh my God, must be something wrong here. And then we go straight for the reaction rather than taking the time to really respond. So yeah, good point bringing it up, Peter.
I had a little bit of a breakup fact, because I know that you wanted to ask me a few things about breakups before we wind up. And I learned this recently. I actually read a really interesting study that that they took subjects in this study who had recently had their heart broken, and they put them in an MRI machine and showed them pictures of their ex and asked them to think about the pain of that rejection. And what they found is that it actually activated the same areas of the brain that are associated with physical pain. So neuroscience is now showing us that emotional pain and physical pain are actually in the same areas of the brain. Which is really interesting. So, so it is heartbreak for a reason. We do experience this emotional pain in a real physical sense. And subsequent to that, there was another study done at the University of California, and they also took heartbroken subjects and administered paracetamol, so just a simple Panadol, and then found that there was a significant reduction in their emotional pain as well through taking Panadol. So again, showing us the the correlation between the physical and the emotional pain. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit. I don't know. Next time we experience some emotional pain, maybe a Panadol might help. But I thought that would be, yeah, just an interesting little fact there.
Yeah, totally interesting. I'm going to write that one down. So when one of my girlfriends go through some heartbreak, I'm like, you know, just take some paracetamol. That might help. But hey, while I've got you on breakups, you know what's always, you know, one question or one of the things that really come up, what I always thought is really curious. I wonder if you could shed some light on that. How is it that, you know, some people after a breakup, they just move on quicker than others? Why have you found is that?
Yeah, well, I feel like this is really my thing. And obviously in my Breakup to Breakthrough program, there's just so many techniques and so many things that we actually use to reduce that time. But I mean, I guess the theory behind some of it and just some quick advice, I guess, that I can give is when we break up, I guess there's two ways that we can sort of look at that event retrospectively, and you know, there's two different types of pain that we can associate with that event. The first pain is the pain where we actually feel the devastation of the loss of someone that we thought was our soulmate. And that can be really debilitating because, you know, I guess love is everything. Love is so important. And if you thought that person was your life partner and they're gone and they're never going to be in your life again, that's just, it's totally, totally debilitating. And people in that space, you know, tend to get really depressed and stuck and find it difficult to move on. You know, the other way that we can look at it, or the other type of pain that we can experience from a breakup on the other side is, you know, and it's still painful and it's still disappointing, but that's the pain that we experience when, you know, it's the disappointment of that person not turning out to be our soulmate. And we can still feel sad, but, you know, it doesn't leave us feeling hopeless and leave us feeling unable to move on. It's going to hurt for a little while, and there are some things that we can do to minimise that pain a little bit, but it's not completely debilitating. And so it's important, if you have come out of a breakup, to see, am I thinking about it this way? Am I thinking that they're my soulmate, or do I understand that they weren't my soulmate? And there is, you know, some practices that you can do and some things you can do to shift your mindset so that you understand that that person wasn't your soulmate, and it's so much easier to be able to look forward and to move on after that point. And the other thing that I see is a real difference between people that are stuck and people that are able to really move on and really leverage that breakup and create something amazing in their life, is the difference between how they see who is to blame for the relationship breakup. And you know, in my example early on about what happened in my 20s, you know, I totally felt like a victim of those unfortunate circumstances, and so I didn't take any responsibility for it. And you know, it was all their fault. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything wrong. And if you have that attitude, then you're not able to look at, you know, at what mistakes or, you know, things that you might have brought into the relationship that co-created it to break down. If you constantly, you know, put that, I guess, that hate and that blame onto that other person and stay in the victim mode, it's really not a good place to be as well, because of the negative emotions associated, but it's also so much harder to get out of it. So it's just important to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for my part in what happened in the relationship, and to really be able to look at it from the perspective of, if I do that, I can take the learnings and the next relationship that I have is going to be amazing.
I love that. Yeah, because after all, I mean, there are two people in a relationship, right? So it's about, you know, not making sure that all is just one, you know, it's all you or all my fault, you know, I'm the victim or you're the victim. It's a bit of both, right? So I love that. And I wonder if that, you know, if you did that, and also coming from a space of not completely being devastated that that person isn't my soulmate, but realizing that, hey, there's a beautiful learning from this relationship that's only going to allow me to find someone even better or more suited to me, well, then that means that we don't have to feel like a failure, right? It also means that, hey, actually this relationship has been here for a reason. I love the fact that I've learned this about me, and now I know even more so about what it is that I truly want in a relationship. So I can now move on forward in a more positive way. So I love that. I wonder, could you, to kind of just give a little bit more, because I absolutely love what you're sharing today, but what are some practical steps, you know, that women could take right now if they've just, you know, if they're in a position that they have broken up with someone and are feeling hurt and rejected?
Yeah, there's loads and loads. So I'll just share a handful that you can do right now. One is what I would call an instant emotion buster. And so throughout the summit, we've talked a lot about journaling and the importance of that. But, you know, if you are feeling really overwhelmed with emotion in that moment, it is absolutely an amazing release to just grab a pen and paper. And I actually would use my computer. So either or, and just let the words flow, just let the thoughts flow, the feelings flow, just get it all out. And you'll find after doing that, I usually do it for about 10 minutes and recommend my clients do it for at least 5 minutes. But what, you know, you don't worry about like spelling and constructing sentences and on all of that. Just let it all out. And what happens is that it actually engages some of your left brain functions in that process, and you actually find that you feel so much better after a little while. It keeps you, you know, it keeps you busy. And so that's a great one. Another tip would be to do a little bit of emotional house cleaning if you've just broken up with someone. So, you know, all the gifts that they've given us, and, you know, and there's always lots of reminders of our ex around. So taking those things out of your environment, you know, I guess music that you used to listen to together, you know, I guess souvenirs and things, gifts that he's given you, you know, even fragrances that, you know, or smells or foods or things that might remind you of anything that reminds you of your partner. Pop it all in a box. You know, I sometimes recommend, if you know that there's not going to be any point to any contact or any need for any contact anymore, take all their contact details out of your computer, take all your, you know, your message threads out of your computer, and out of your phone, and pop them on a, you know, on a USB, or write them down in a, you know, on a piece of paper, and perhaps give that box to someone else until such a time. I'm not suggesting to throw all this stuff out. I'm not suggesting, you know, to do the big delete and block and, you know, to be overly dramatic about it, but just remove the emotional triggers from your environment. That helps in that early stages of the breakup. Just a couple more that I can share right now. One would be to take your ex off a pedestal, because we sort of have a bit of an emotional bias to look back at our relationship and remember all the amazing things that we did and all their beautiful qualities and, you know, all the wonderful things about the relationship, and, you know, and we forget about the reasons why they weren't quite right for us or why the relationship just didn't work. And so it's important to not focus on and keep your ex on the pedestal and rose-colored glasses, and it's important not to focus on those things. Make a list of the top 20 things that didn't work about the relationship or that you didn't like, and you know, you might want to keep adding to that. Write as much detail in there as you like, and actually just focus on that, and it makes it a lot more easier rather than reminiscing about how amazing it was, which can be really painful space to be in. And the last tip to get, I guess, to help to sort of get over your ex if you've just gone through a breakup would be, and this is actually being really mindful of your thoughts, because a lot of us get caught up in the trap of the what if scenario. So saying to ourselves, oh, what if he's met someone new already? Or, you know, what if he's out right now and he's hooking up with somebody else? And, you know, what if this and what if that? And actually starting to create and imagine scenarios that are really quite painful and cause us to get really emotional. So, and the thing to ask yourself is, do I have any evidence at all that any of this is true? But you've got to catch yourself out at you know, at that thought patterns where you're saying, you're playing out all these what if scenarios, and say to yourself, do I know any of this is true? Do I have any evidence of this is true? And you've got to nip that in the bud, because that can be a really painful place to be as well.
I love that, and I think doing that whole what if scenario, that might allow you to nip those insecurities in the bud again, and to maybe find out, oh my God, maybe I've actually been, you know, adding my own fuel for no reason, and my insecurities were actually causing, you know, some parts of this relationship to not work out. So then you can catch yourself and learn from that and move forward. I love that. Tell me, Peter, I love absolutely what you shared today, and I think if there's a woman out there that is just, you know, going through a breakup and finding herself in that position where she's like, yeah, you know, my heart's broken, I can take some paracetamol, and whilst that might help my pain, I think that there's maybe more to go through. And obviously you being the breakup, you know, specialist, recovery specialist, if there's a woman, you know, that's listening or watching you today, how can she go on about to work more with you to help her?
Yeah, I mean, this is the bit that I'm most actually excited about sharing. It's been such a wonderful experience running the summit and offering all this amazing advice to women. But I'm so passionate about getting my message out there that we don't have to suffer through emotional pain, relationship problems, heartbreaks, wanting our ex back and not knowing how to go about it. We don't have to suffer through that alone, and that we can get help with it. And so my gift to all the summit viewers that are watching is I'm actually offering for anyone who is in that position where their relationship's not working, or they need some support or need some advice, and you know that perhaps the advice that they're getting from their friends and family is not, you know, as supportive, or they just would like to get some clarity and understanding about their particular situation and what to do and how to proceed forward. I'm actually offering a 60-minute clarity session to all summit viewers, and I'm really excited to be able to help and share and get to know some of you as well. And the way that you can access that is to click the button below the video, and that will take you over to my Facebook page, which is Peta April Life and Relationship Coach. And then on the Facebook page, I'd love it if you'd like my page, and right next to the like button is a book now button, and that will take you directly to my calendar where you can have a look for a suitable time, pop your details in there whether you'd like to come into my practice in Armidale if you're based in Victoria, or whether you'd like to conduct the session, the clarity session, over phone or over Skype, and that will be really helpful for anyone who'd like to, you know, who's feeling emotional or like some support in their relationship, is struggling with the dating process, stuff's going on with the guy that they really like, or you've gone through a breakup. All of those sorts of scenarios, I'd really love to be able to help.
Sounds fantastic, and I think, you know, to give up that time of year is very, very generous. And I know that you already helped out one of my friends with one of the clarity sessions, and I received amazing feedback. So I know that the work that you do is truly amazing. So I definitely recommend that, you know, any woman that's watching that, you know, today, the interview, if it is you, or maybe you know someone else, like I already just thought of straight away of another friend of mine who is that past breakup point and still struggling a little bit. So, you know, if that is you, and if you know someone that is going through that process, definitely I'd highly recommend, you know, to go on your Facebook page and to not only like the page but book in for the clarity session, because I know just how much value you add to that. So thank you so much. And I guess, you know, on behalf of the other female coaches that have been in this experience with you, thank you so much. Honestly, it's been such a beautiful experience. It's been a beautiful gift. The feedback has been amazing. I have loved watching some of the other coaches add, you know, their specialities and share their messages. I've known, even for myself, I've taken some really awesome feedback and golden nuggets. So thank you so much for giving up your time, you know, interviewing all of us, and of course, you know, giving your time to share your message. It's been a really amazing summit. So again, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, Peta.
Oh, thank you. That was so sweet. And thank you, Sabrina. You've been amazing. Thank you for agreeing to support me in my interview. The event would not have been possible without all of these amazing coaches giving up their time and being willing to share their wisdom and get the message of the event out there. And obviously all of our beautiful, gorgeous viewers who, you know, and your feedback has been amazing. And I'm so glad that you've been sharing all that you've learned. For anyone who's not part of the private Facebook group, There's links in the daily email and links below each of the video pages, but we'd love, if you're not already there, to come over and join us. We are going to be extending access to watching all the videos for additional 2 weeks beyond the end of the summit. So if you'd like a little bit of extra time to, you know, to watch or rewatch some of the videos and to download some of the amazing, beautiful free gifts and bonuses and offers and opportunities that the coaches are sharing, then I'd encourage you to come over there, leave us a bit of a comment, come and say hi, and make sure, yeah, to either book in for a clarity session with me. I'd love to speak to you, or if you know someone who would really benefit from it, then share the love, and thank you. I'll see you and talk to you all again really soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Peta. Talk to you soon. Bye.